Welcome in to Greenville Grit. This is Greenville Residents in Touch with your hosts, Terry Williams and Michael Overton. This is the show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Greenville Toyota, the Overton Group. And now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Good evening and welcome to Greenville Grit. I'm Terry Williams.
And I'm Michael Overton. Terry,
Michael.
Good to see you this evening.
Good to see you.
Got a wonderful guest. He's a repeat guest for us, Brian Brown, representative for Eastern North Carolina, or Pitt County.
Pitt County.
Thank you for coming on, Brian. Good to have you back.
Me. It's good to be back here with you guys, and hopefully we can continue making this an occurrence.
That's
well,
right.
Hope so. And I tell you, you guys have been pretty busy in the legislature over the last several weeks or months, and it's glad to have you back home.
It's good to be home. Yeah.
And
at least that's what my wife says.
Yeah.
Today.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
today. So she gets tired of it.
That's right.
Go
Send me
back in
to
session.
Go back to Raleigh.
Well, before we get into this discussion of some of the things and some of the good things and, of course, the tough challenges that you guys have had to deal with over the last several weeks, we have to thank the sponsors.
That's
because
right.
that's why we're here.
Really
Greenville
important.
Toyota. Looking for a new Toyota Scion vehicle or new used car or need your car serviced? See Greenville Toyota and the Greenville Toyota team. You can go to greenvilletoyota.com or 321-3000. They're also located across from Fresh Market on Memorial Drive.
That's right.
We have Kidd Construction Group.
Green
Bill
Builder.
Kidd, Green Builders, KCG, BuildGreen.com.
Right.
Bill's a good friend of mine, has built some just beautiful homes, puts a lot of features in them, priced really well, great customer service, and it's kind of hard to find with builders these days, is customer service and follow-up. But I speak very highly of him. Look up KCG, BuildGreen.com, and give Bill a chance to look at doing your home or even an addition. We also have the Overton Group,
Overton Group.
Real Estate
Thank
Professionals.
you, Michael.
You're very
Continued
welcome.
support.
I've enjoyed being part of the show, but we do residential brokerage, commercial sales leasing, business brokerage. You can find us at ovtgroup.com. And lastly,
Ribeyes.
Ribeye Steakhouse. If you go to Ribeye Steakhouse, you get a 25% discount if you mention the Greenville Grit.
That's right.
That's the key. So, Brian,
Believe
Gotta
me.
go.
you have
I
to
will
go
be
to
there.
Ribeye Steakhouse.
I will be
Everyone
there.
listening, you have to go to
Might even
Ribeye
wear a T-shirt. Greenville Grit.
That
That would be
might get you
great.
more than 25%. So anyway, thank you for Ribeyes getting in with us. Great place to eat, great atmosphere on
is.
Fire Tower
Very
Road.
nice.
Is also they've got a location in Williamston. So go take care of our sponsors, and we'll keep taking care of you. You can. Let's see, what else we got? Anything else?
That's it
Before
right
we get
now.
into the
Let's
show,
take a
we're going to take
break
a quick
and-
commercial break.
Yeah.
Come back in 2 minutes. We'll get into it with Brian.
Sounds great.
Are you thinking?
Welcome back to Greenville Grit. We're here today with Representative Brian Brown, and we're so glad to have you. And he keeps us updated on what's happening in Raleigh and how it affects us here back home. So thank you for coming today. We appreciate it very
Thank
much.
you for having me on. And it's always good to be able to come on and talk about the things that's going on, not only in Raleigh and statewide, but obviously specifically right here in Pitt County, and
Right.
be able to get the message out of the good things that are taking place. And like Michael said a little bit ago, some of the challenges that we still face and,
That's right.
and what we need to do about those things. So I appreciate you allowing me coming on.
Well, Brian, I think one of the biggest challenges that we spoke a little bit about on the show, it was all in the paper, was the SODCA, which is the Set-Off Debt Collection Act, as well as the upper payment limit that ECU and Vidant were facing. Thank you for the work that you did there, and Representative and House Speaker Tom Tillis was also very involved in that. And if it weren't for that, kind of goes against some of these letters to the editor we've seen lately. But you did an amazing job of supporting
appreciate
ECU, and thank you for fighting for Pitt County.
There's been
'cause
letters
right.
to the editor?
I don't know.
Imagine
Has there?
that.
I haven't seen a one. No,
But,
I appreciate it. I really do. And I anytime we talk to a group and we talk about what we did to safeguard those funds for East Carolina, it doesn't go without being said that it's really bad that we had to play from that defensive position to begin with.
Right.
We should be able to be proactive and really start to work towards some really great things for Eastern North Carolina versus always having to defend ourselves and defend what we have over here. And that's really been the mission is not just to get the side SODCA reinstated or to get UPNL to be safeguarded, but to get legislators from the center part of the state and legislators who are just not as familiar with Eastern North Carolina to make that travel into Pitt County, see the great things that's going on, with East Carolina, the Brody School of Medicine, what's going on with Vita Medical Center and our medical community as a whole. Get out to our industrial park and see some of the great things that's taking place there, and really take a peek at what's going on in Eastern North Carolina and how we're really on the precipice of doing something great, particularly in the biotech sector, and we really have some great things going. So it's been a challenge, but it's also been a lot of fun bringing those legislators east and letting them see what's going on. And they always walk away with this bright-eyed of wow, this is a really great place. You guys are really doing some great things, and we need to continue to help push it forward. So.
Well, getting into the whole healthcare debate, one of the things, it was mentioned briefly in the paper today, but it's been a lot of dispute and probably some misinformation that has been received from both sides of the aisle. But let's get into talking about Medicaid expansion.
Sure.
Very hot topic. North Carolina did not do that. And I think there's a lot of confusion and a lot of media outlets have questioned why we have not made the decision to expand Medicaid. Give the reasons so in as best terms as possible, people to understand what was the decision made. Do we regret that decision? Is there that one come back and bite us or what?
Well, it's a hot topic nationally. Expansion, not expansion. A lot of states that have expanded are now going, wait a minute, maybe we should have taken a more measured approach and maybe not done this. From our perspective, really, we kind of looked at it from two separate components. Medicaid that is existing right now in North Carolina and the prospect of expanding Medicaid. We have a broken Medicaid system. You hear politicians talk, we have a broken education system, our education system's not broken. Do we need to make tweaks? Absolutely. We need to make tweaks in every facet of government. But our Medicaid system is truly broken. The way that it's defined, the way that it is the way that it is actually managed, the way that health care is provided via Medicaid, every component of it needs tweaking and needs fixed to provide, just more security and more predictability from the Medicaid system.
Is that a state-run function or a federal government-run function?
Well, it's kind of a combination, if you will, because really the state runs and manages the Medicaid portion, but we're tied to it with federal dollars and federal oversight. For instance, if we wanted to make massive changes to our Medicaid, not only eligibility, but just how we actually reform Medicaid, let's say we make it more efficient, we would actually have to send 50%, so 50 cents on every dollar we save from Medicaid reform will have to go back to the federal government. So, when you kind of look at it, what's the real benefit of states saying, you know what, we're going to reform Medicaid. We're going to focus on outcomes. We're going to get people off of Medicaid. We're really going to work on changing how we administer Medicaid, because when you are really tied to that federal drawdown of dollars, so for every $1 spent in the state of North Carolina, we get 3 from the federal government. So it's a whole system of the more you have, the more you get. And as most states have learned, when you get on the federal government dollar drug, it's very hard to get off that addiction. And that's a lot of the problem that we're facing. Now, when you looked at the expansion component, we looked back at our existing structure and said, look, we have an unbelievably large amount of Medicaid population right now. We can't afford to pay for what we have. We're facing, Medicaid overruns in the hundreds of millions of dollars year after year after year. We continue to reduce reimbursements to our physicians and to our hospitals for Medicaid, which is absolutely killing them, and still facing these massive overruns based upon really horrible predictability. So let's expand Medicaid, right? Now you have tens of thousands more Medicaid recipients on the rolls. Now the federal government said we're going to pay 100% for the first 3 years. Then you are going to be readjusted to 90%. Well, it's just like our home finances for into perpetuity. Potentially,
well, we know that's not the case in the federal government.
It could be less. I mean, but that's the goal. That was what the goal was 3 years at 100%, then a reduction to 90%. But I always equate it to home finances. If you have $0 to begin with, and in fact you're in the red, you still don't add 10%. I mean, you just wouldn't do that.
Right.
That's not a good fiscal practice. Now, would I like to see every North Carolinian who is eligible for Medicaid receive Medicaid? Absolutely, without question. But, the reality is that at what cost to our taxpayers, at what cost to our businesses,
Right.
to what cost to our state do we do that? We have to get our house in order before we're able to expand Medicaid
So how do we do
and
that?
offer those things. We're looking at a lot of different ways in which we can reform Medicaid. I can tell you that not either body, and again, we say this all the time, but we are a bicameral legislature. Senate can't do anything without the House, and the House can't do anything without the Senate. We've really explored Medicaid reform. The House is on one side, and the Senate's more on another side. And, I think that what I would really like to see is I'd like to see a provider-driven Medicaid reform system to where we're really focusing on outcomes of the patients. We're not focused on how many patients can we enroll, how many patients can we see. We're really focused on what the long-term outcomes are going to be for these patients. And really managing disease states at a base level, getting groups like CCNC, which is Community Care of North Carolina, who provide a lot of Medicaid assistance to a lot of these patients, not just with medication and things, but actual disease state management. Going into their homes, educating them on why they have diabetes,
Right.
what they need to do from a lifestyle change, making sure that their medicine regimens are being administered appropriately, and that the patients are taking the medications appropriately. Lifestyle changes that are really going to affect and tying the physicians to those outcomes. I think you'll see some drastic change in Medicaid if we do that. And some states are starting to move in that direction, and they're seeing real benefits from it.
I know that I have clients going to come in from other states all the time moving into our area. And most recently, they were talking about how hard it was for them to still find physicians who will accept them as Medicaid patients because the reimbursements or disbursements back to the
right.
doctors aren't changing, and they can't afford to even see them.
That's right.
So what happens though, Brian? I mean, at what point, if these private hospitals or private physician offices continue to say, I just can't afford to do it anymore? There's a bottom to this somewhere, and it might not be a good
seeing
bottom.
private practices.
Well, we
you're already
know.
seeing
Right.
private practices saying, you know what, either they've already begun to not take Medicaid, or they're saying, I don't know if this is going to fit into my business strategy, because at the end of the day, their goal is to provide health care, but they also have a business that they have to run. So you're going to see these same patients that are going to end up in our emergency rooms,
Right.
using the emergency rooms as their primary care physicians, as many of them do
Yeah,
now.
but Vidant can't take that.
Vidant
Eventually, it's
can't.
going to
Most
get to the point that
hospitals
Vidant's like,
can't.
hey, I can't do it either.
That's right, and then again, it drives the
And I
cost
don't-
of the state up even
It's going to
additionally.
drive the cost of everything else to those who do have insurance, and because they can't turn those patients away if they keep flooding the emergency rooms.
That's
They
right.
have to see them.
Well, don't hold me to these numbers. I think, is it Duke or some of the hospitals around the Triangle, their Medicaid patient volume is like 16% of their patients, I believe. Vidant's is 28 or 30. I mean, it's significantly higher.
When you look at kind of the Vidant structure across the entire East, realistically, their Medicare, Medicaid, and non-insurance cash pay patients makes up about 80% of their total patient population. So what they're really focusing on is generating revenue through 10% of their patient base. It can be extraordinarily difficult to manage a business and to not only manage that business, but hire and retain fantastic physicians,
Right.
be it in neurology, be it in cardiology. A lot of the things that we've really hung our hat on here in Eastern North Carolina to get those good physicians to come and stay.
Well, also, it seems to, according to some doctors' offices, the reimbursement back from Medicare and Medicaid takes forever. And they're trying to run office and a business, and they wait 6 months or longer to get their funds
but they got payroll
back.
due every 2
And they
weeks.
have bills and payroll. To me, if that could be stopped or a quicker turnaround, maybe they'd be more inclined to continue to see the patients, even if it was a reduced amount.
That's right. When we first rolled out NC Tracks, which is the new payment management system that the state initiated to manage the Medicaid system, there were an unbelievable amount of glitches, and we even saw physician practices close their doors
Right.
because they were so backlogged in receiving their Medicaid reimbursements. These are the things that we can't allow to have happen,
Right.
and we've seen NC Tracks start to work now. We still have some issues out there that need to be fixed, and we're still hearing some complaints. But for the most part, it's functioning pretty much the way it's
Right.
supposed to function. But we know in business, cash flow is king. And
Right.
and if you're rendering services and paying payroll without the dollars coming back in the door for those services that you've rendered, it makes it very
tough.
difficult to continue to keep your doors open and
That's right.
and fulfill your obligations.
That's
Well,
exactly
unfortunately,
right.
it's not just a Greenville thing, and a lot of people can get focused on Vidant being in Greenville. Vidant's got several hospitals
That's
throughout
right.
the East, and we serve, I think, 29 counties or somewhere that number. We've got to make sure Vidant and East Carolina are healthy, because they are the economic engines of Greenville.
That's
I
right.
mean, if one of them falters, it could be absolutely devastating. And it's been a little bit frustrating too, watching over the last several months. 140 years of having the governor's mansion, the Senate, and the House, but just seeing a lot of separation, it seems, between the Senate and the House. It's almost as if the other party was in charge of one or the other. What do we have to do to bring these two groups together? This is supposed to be for the benefit of North Carolina, and it just seems to be nothing but the same division that people are completely sick and tired of seeing in Washington, and we've got it in our backyard up in Raleigh.
Which is 100% understandable, but I will go back to the facts, and it seems like there's a lot of infighting within the House and the Senate. But I say it all the time. Republicans walk to a beat of their own drum. They're always going to stand up for what they believe in and what they believe is right, and they won't be steered in another direction. They're not going to follow the flock. And so in a lot of ways, it's actually very beneficial to the state. And when you look at what we came in and what just about every single one of us campaigned on, which was jobs,
Right.
and then when we were done with that, we're going to create some more jobs. That's what we've done. I mean, we've moved from a position where we were the fifth highest unemployment in the country to the fastest drop in unemployment in the country.
That's right.
We are one of 10 states with a AAA credit rating. We are number 6th in the country for tech sector job growth. We're the 4th business friendliest state in the country now. So the things that we campaigned
that's
on.
up. I can't remember what the
It's
stats were. That is
incredible.
Yes.
significantly
It's
higher.
incredible.
Significantly.
It's absolutely incredible. So when we look at those type of things, the things that all of us campaigned on, that we were going to come in and put our neighbors back to work,
Right.
we've done it.
That's
and we're
right.
continuing to do it. We're continuing to see drastic drops in unemployment. We went into a situation to where we had the other party completely ignoring the constitutional mandate for a balanced budget,
Right.
$7 billion deficit, to a balanced budget that we now have. $2.5 million worth of debt owed to the federal government for unemployment insurance. It's down to about $500 million. We'll have it paid off by the beginning of next year.
Which that's incredible
These
to
are
me.
incredible
Yeah.
statistics that we've really,
That's
we've
right.
put our nose to the grindstone, and we've started to do great things for this state. And we'll continue to do those things. Now, you had mentioned it before, 140 years. 140 years. And you've had Republicans sitting on the sidelines with great ideas saying, this is what I
Right.
want to do. Now we're starting to have the opportunity to do that. But that big ship isn't going to turn in 2 years. So,
But you've
why
done a
not?
lot. But
but
you've
we've
done a lot in 2
Yeah, that's
years.
right. Why not?
You have done a lot,
We've done
though.
a tremendous
whole
amount in
lot.
2 years. And I think that, the facts are is that we'll continue to do that.
Right.
But no matter where we move this state, I promise you, Republicans still will have this overall, opinion that they're going to do what they feel is right, not only for the state, but for their individual districts. And they're going to stand up for what their belief system is and what
Right.
their ideology is, not just because there's an R beside their name, which I think is
It's a
outstanding.
good thing. That's right. Which brings us, talking about more jobs to the state, sort of brings us into the conversation about the new pipeline. So maybe, I know that you don't exactly have something to do with that, but why don't you explain a little bit, if you can, about what's going on about the pipeline? I know that Henry talked with the governor on his show this morning, and he was trying to explain that. But that's going to bring jobs.
Yes, it'll
if
bring
it's
a great
even
deal
an
of jobs.
indirect way that any of you all might have had something to do with it, I think they said about 700 jobs, and it could be more than that.
And that's going to be located in eastern North
Yeah,
Carolina.
the pipeline
Come
will
through-
run directly through eastern North
Through-
Carolina. And you look at some of that northeastern portion of our state that, jobs are so critical to
Desperate.
some of those counties. I think it's going to be something that's really, really good. And it's, there's obviously going to be the direct impact of the pipeline coming through and the millions of dollars in investment and the 700, potential jobs that will,
Right.
that'll result of it. But, when you kind of look at the trickle down effect of what those jobs and what that infrastructure build out is going to provide other companies and ancillary companies throughout the eastern portion of our state, it's going to be much more than 700
That's right.
jobs. And, although we didn't have, 100% to do with
Right.
it, I think a regulatory environment that is,
That's
allowing these types of ventures to take place, the confidence that it takes for someone and a company to make this type of investment in our state by saying, you know what, we really think what's going on in North Carolina is moving in the right direction. We're willing to make this massive investment in North Carolina for the future. And then when you look at it for, the average citizen, and you say, well, how's this going to benefit me? When you look at the average utility rates, when you look at what's going on from what's coming out of your pocket each and every day and just managing your own home for the utility side, again, this is another benefit that we can really hang our hat on to try to drive those costs and those rates down for the ratepayers.
That's right.
Well, let's talk about incentives. Let's talk about recruiting businesses to the state. I know the paper had, and I'm a big car buff, so I like reading about that. So I knew that Toyota was looking at Texas as to put their home for North American operations, and they chose Texas. But I did not know that North Carolina was in the running to get that, which is unusual because I'm just not used to hearing about North Carolina.
That's right.
Getting that. Where are we at on incentives? Because incentives can be a drug. You hear a lot of states giving an insane amount of money to recruit these companies, and I know that these companies can bring tons and tons of jobs. But where are we at on the incentive programs that we're doing, and how are we being competitive against South Carolina, who's been extremely effective, in Tennessee? How do we start getting some of these major worldwide manufacturers to look here?
Right. Well, let's back up for just 1 second and talk about, you said Toyota was interested in North Carolina. That's not news you're prone to hearing. Well, let's talk about why, regardless of the incentives, why companies like that are looking at North Carolina as a place to go. And it really comes down to what our tax environment looks like now with our tax reform, from a corporate standpoint, from a personal income standpoint, really positive changes, what our regulatory environment looks like now, and what they can do to just break soil in North Carolina, hire qualified people because, we have workforce ready coming out of our community colleges. We have an unbelievable tech sector coming out of our university system statewide. These are the reasons why companies like Toyota are saying, you know what, let's take a peek at North Carolina. Now, from the incentive side, that's kind of the draw that we're missing at this point. And I'm kind of torn on it, I'll be honest. I don't love incentives, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a Republican that does say, you know what, I really like incentives. Incentives, in my mind, have to have some type of clawback provision and protection for the taxpayers. When in the waning hours of the legislative session, we were up against a bill, House Bill 1224, that was just riddled with different types of incentives. JDIG, JMAC, and what was called walking around money for the Secretary of Commerce. I'm all for JDIG and JMAC. Could they be tweaked a little bit? Could they, have a little more oversight? Absolutely. But what aspect of government couldn't? But they have these nice clawback provisions that if the job growth that was expected isn't met, these type of things that the taxpayers are going to get their dollars back. My issue with the walking around money that would be given to the Secretary of Commerce, not that I don't think that she could manage it effectively and her team couldn't, because I have the utmost faith in Secretary Decker, but there's really no safeguards in there. I think that a lot of the conversation comes from, places like South Carolina, where their Secretary of Commerce essentially does have a blank checkbook to be able to entice businesses to come to South Carolina and lay down their roots or expand there. So we have to try to compete with that, but I think we have to protect the taxpayers first and foremost when we're talking about those incentive dollars, and not just free-handedly handing out, blank checks to companies to come to North Carolina. But make sure that they're too coming to North Carolina for the right reasons. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done there. From the JDIG perspective and some of the caps that's been placed on that, even Pitt County has felt a clamp down on that from expansion with some of our existing industries right here in Pitt County that can be relatively problematic that we need to take a peek at.
Well, Brian, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll come back after this 2 minutes and wrap up the show with just a few positive things going on in the area. So we'll be right back in 2 minutes.
The Kidd Construction Group is Pitt County's green home builder. Listen to what Kidd Construction customers are saying.
Words cannot express the love we have for our home. From your great ideas to your strive for perfection and attention to detail, our home is beyond expectations. You have made our dreams come true, and we are super excited to raise our family here.
Kidd Construction Group is a licensed general contractor for commercial and residential. Call Kidd Construction 412-4254 or visit kcgbuildgreen.com.
Are you thinking about what to do for dinner tonight? That's easy. Head over to Ribeye Steakhouse on Fire Tower Road in Greenville. Ribeye's not only has the best steak in Greenville, they've got an endless salad bar made fresh daily. And if beef is not your thing, check out the
Welcome back to the Greenville Grit. Michael Overton along with my co-host Terry Williams, and I repeat, guest.
I'll be a co-host.
Representative Brian Brown. Sometimes, hey, don't say that.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Well, come on,
Brian, I made a mistake before we went to break. I said we're going to come out with something positive, and here I am saying school vouchers. Let's talk about school vouchers.
Yeah,
I promise.
it's positive for some people.
Well, it's positive in a way. I guess the state Supreme Court released funds.
Right. Yeah, they did mandate the funds
given. When the schools will get them or whatnot.
That's right. There's still a lot of question out there, but if your child is one of those children that applied and been approved and things, send them on to their school of choice. I have the utmost confidence that this will be overturned and those funds will be fully released to those schools, and those children can get the education that their parents feel is the most appropriate education for them to receive, not a bureaucrat.
Well, I think on Monday there was a great Daily Reflector did an article on a kid that is going to Oakwood.
Right.
And same thing happened. I mean, it's like a dream for him. He's a gifted kid to go there. And Oakwood, just phenomenal school. And they send kids to Ivy League schools all the time. And this is their opportunity to do that. So it's really frustrating that fight continues to exist.
It does.
I don't understand.
I don't want to paint the picture that we don't have kids coming out of our public schools that go to Ivy League schools.
Our public
schools do a phenomenal job as well.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, again, it comes down to the choice. It comes down to choice of what the parent and the student feel is the most appropriate place, the most appropriate learning environment for them to be successful.
That's right.
And that comes in all different shapes and sizes.
That's
well,
right.
I understand.
I have one quick question concerning Common Core.
Okay.
It was voted this year to revisit that. There's a committee set up that's supposed to be meeting to go over that. Understand they have not met.
They have not, no.
And is the committee chosen?
I believe that they're in the final process of fully appointing the committee. You got to keep in mind we just got out of session.
That's right.
So those interim committees, those study committees, they're not going to initiate and get ramped up while we're still in session. So
at this point, Common Core's in for this year probably. There's just not enough time to revisit that now.
The way the policy reads is we have 5 years to completely replace it with North Carolina state standards.
Right. Or tweak it, as the governor had said he wanted to do. Okay.
Sure.
Just an update.
So we have 5 years to make that happen.
Okay.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out, as well as the voucher thing.
Yeah,
I'm a supporter of it. The choice.
The choice
is what I like.
That's right.
And to see that. But before this show ends, we always, again, have to thank the sponsors one more time. Greenville Toyota, the Overton Group, Kidd Construction Group, and Ribeye Steakhouse. Again, 25% off if you mention Greenville Grit. Also, go to restoreonelife.org and check that out. There's the gala coming up September 26th. And that's for an anti-human trafficking organization. We'd love to have you there.
Great organization.
And until then, we'll be hosting Talk of the Town tomorrow morning. We will see you next Wednesday.